How can we make the world better? By making ourselves better. The Dr. Joe Show explores how you can make positive personal change by using his groundbreaking and highly effective I Am approach to understand who we are and why we do what we do. Your small changes can have big effects.
Join us now for the Dr. Joe Show with Mark Stiles of Stiles Law and your host, Dr. Joe Schrand.
Stretch the kindness, brush with madness. Is it sadness or just a show? Then go, 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 go. Then go, 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 go. Then go, 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 go.
Hey, hey, hey. It's me and Dr. Joe Show. What's up, buddy?
It's the rebranding of the Schranding. It's great.
Yes.
Yeah.
Me and Dr. Joe.
I'm
Is it glow?
I'm getting used to it.
You
Yeah,
are.
because it's not quite as narcissistic as the Dr. Joe Show. It can be anyone's narcissism.
Plus,
It can
the
be.
social media algorithm is challenging because there's a Dr.
There
Joe
is.
Show doing a great job with cigars and whatnot.
Really
so,
good cigars.
So we
yeah.
gotta flip the script.
We do.
there.
So I don't keep making an ass of myself. It's
Yes.
a cigar joke. Cigar joke, sorry.
Da-dunt,
It's punishment. The
Oh,
punishment
here
has
we
started.
go. Let's go.
And we got somebody new in studio there. Who we got there?
That's Dave.
This is Dave. How you guys doing?
Hello, Dave. Nice to have you here.
Thanks. Nice to be with you.
Thanks for helping us out tonight.
No problem.
Yeah.
Welcome to me and Dr. Joe.
Welcome to me and one of the first guests at me and Dr. Joe.
Me and Dr. Joe.
So does that mean we have to do a whole rebrand thing online
I think it
and
would make
everything?
sense,
and
actually.
we have to change everything?
No, we
No?
get to.
We get to.
We get to.
It's true. It's not have to.
Get to.
I so appreciate this.
So we're not gonna spend money. We're going to invest funds.
Oh,
It's reframe, right?
very good.
Yeah.
I appreciate that.
So AI, what do you think? You believe in it or what?
Whose AI are we talking about?
So funny story. So I've been talking a lot about AI. As you know, we're leaning into all of the efficiencies that it creates over at Stiles Law. And I was at a store, an unnamed store, with a self checkout, and there was a gentleman, a senior, who was in charge of helping people when the self checkout, created tension or friction. So
Right.
the human being was there to save the day, and amazing human being, and he saw that I may be in distress, and he came over and he realized that I don't know what it was, but it was fine, and he goes, this is what we like to call rudimentary AI, and sometimes it's rude.
Nice.
And it was like an aha moment
Wow.
for me,
What was the aha for you?
that that if we could create some efficiencies around AI where it wasn't rude, it was kind, and it was impossible to disrupt them and get the AI to become angry and stay. So it was really funny. So while this was happening, there was some, and this is why I don't say what the store was or whatever. There was a gentleman who was being really rude, like aggressively rude to everyone around, and he was doing the best he can. It was his I am at the time. Who knows what was going on? And everybody was kind of walking on eggshells. And I said to the gentleman working at the store, I said, well, do you think it's more rude than humans? And he was like, well, and I kind of opened up my arms in gesture of like, this person right here is way more rude than this machine is right here. And it was really interesting. And I've put a lot of thought into it because one of the things we're doing with the AI is our phone system. So one of the ideas is we're going to create a new phone system using a chat concierge, an AI concierge, to help with the intake and the process. And it's definitely going to be clunky. People are definitely going to get frustrated. However, it's going to allow us to level up an individual to do something different and more purposeful. And one of the things I took from this episode in the store was that, and we're actually launching this tomorrow at 11. We're gonna put out the AI phone system, and the intro of it is, "Hello, thank you for calling Styles Law. I am your chat AI concierge," right? Fully disclosed. Like this is, we're not faking it.
Right.
Some may call this so-called rudimentary artificial intelligence. I can promise you I won't be rude.
Nice.
How may I help you? And we'll see how it goes from there, right? So hopefully that disarms everybody from, oh, this is one of those, I'm not going to do this,
But why do you think people are resistant to it in that way?
Because they expect it to mess up.
Is that what it is, or do they expect it to replace them?
So I think there's a lot of conversation going on right there. Like there's a lot in that, and I wanna get to our guest here soon. I think the person on the other line is feeling a sense of betrayal, right? I'm not going to get my needs met because this computer's not going to be able to fulfill what a human being could. Now, there's a whole nother conversation of, is this going to take away jobs? And I was talking on the show recently about a conference that I went to where someone had, because AI has been here for many years. It's just like the personal computer is now available for us, right? Same kind of concept. The internet is now available for us. And, I lost my train of thought, Dr. Joe.
It's okay. We'll get AI back on it.
Yes, exactly.
And I think that's one of the concerns. Remember, we've actually had guests on the show who've written sci-fi novels that incorporates AI, and the sort of insidious idea that because there is no emotional investment, something can make decisions based on data that can hurt other people. But it's just the data. It's nothing malicious about it. And I think that's part of what gets folks. So the fact that there was somebody rude that you could identify as a rude person, and then you have a response, you're not going to be able to identify any emotional content in the artificial intelligence.
And that may be upsetting to people.
I think that is concerning, because we expect to be able to respond to somebody else's emotion, and then we either mirror them or we try to change it.
But if there's no emotion,
that's right.
Then it's simply a data conversation that is emotionless. But what I remember what I was going to say is this company had been using AI really purposefully for 18 months, and they said unequivocally they became 30% more efficient. And they said, we didn't lay off 30% of our workforce, and nor do we plan to. We took half of that, this 15%, and put it all in more research and development. How do we get more efficient? And then we took the other portion, the 15%, and we focused on cultural activities in the organization to create better culture. So leveling up, delegate to elevate. I mean, this is a revolution, an evolution, whatever you want to call it, that is really exciting. And one of the things that I find really exciting is how our state here in Massachusetts is offering community college to folks that didn't go to college after, I think it's the age of 25. So, here's your opportunity to get in there and do what you want to do, right? Go and do what you want to do, not what you have to do, what you get to do. And there's a lot of opportunities out there to, look at those community college course catalogs and say, you know what, this is what I want to do. I'm going to do this in anticipation of what's coming, because it is coming. It's like the internet. Like, we're in dial-up modem right now, and we know what happened when the internet came. A lot of good stuff.
Yeah. Same with the printing press. A lot of good stuff.
Right. And the personal computer did a very similar thing.
But I wonder whether it's the phrase artificial intelligence. Maybe it's the word artificial that is disturbing and concerning to people.
Well, I think there's a lot there, right? I mean, the machine learning, and then there's the dystopia conversation, right? What if the machines go,
Right. Go south on us.
Singularity, and they get to have emotion, and they make certain decisions, and then we're the
I know how
inferior species.
And we perhaps we're at risk of having other people take over those decisions. And some of the decisions are great for people to take over. I mean, but one of the decisions that I make is when we take a commercial break to hear from our sponsors who are not artificial at all. So with that in mind, let's take a commercial break. We'll be right back with the Dr. Joe Show.
Or endorsed by us.
And then me and Dr. Joe.
Hey folks, thank you for listening to the Dr. Joe Show. We've been investigating whether or not we want to bring sponsors into our podcast. What are your thoughts? Do you know somebody who might be a good partner with the Dr. Joe Show, who may want to align their product or service with the Dr. Joe Show? Think about it.
Hey Dave, thanks. We're back. Me and Dr. Joe, right here in studio. Me and Dr. Joe in studio.
Hey, you got some rhyme going on there.
That's kind of like me and Julio down by the schoolyard a little bit.
Very little bit.
Very little. We got guests.
We got guests tonight, though.
We got awesome guests.
Before we do, I just want to give one quick shout out because I know that there may be people listening to this at Jack & Sons here in Marshfield. So I just want to say hello to you and thank you for everything you ever do for me. Appreciate it. All right. Who do we have tonight?
There's a sponsorship right there. Yeah. Sponsorship opportunity. So we have two amazing human beings who get involved with PMC. We're running a theme here leading up to the Pan Mass Challenge, pmc.org. And these folks have been riding with me for a few years. I didn't know them before the Pan Mass Challenge. Now, as you love to say, all friends were once strangers.
That's right. Every friend was once a stranger. That's right.
So these folks are now friends. We have, to my far left, Jim O'Leary, who was here last year with us on what was formerly known as the Dr. Joe Show, but is now referred to as Me and Dr. Joe Show. He works with Bank of New York Mellon. He has a great culture there where they get really involved in matching and helping support his initiative, his purpose, which is raising money to eradicate cancer. And then to my immediate left, we have Dave Laudermore. Dave is an amazing human being. I only got to know him within the last 3 years, and we found each other on the trail quite a bit, back and forth and catching up and riding those long, hot stretches and simply chit-chatting, and the connection was made very quickly. He comes from the UK, so that adds an element of fun with the accent and the different I am, right? A very, very different I am than me growing up here in the United States. And he's a fellow practicing lawyer. He was in big law for many years and then was scooped up by National Grid to do some really amazing projects for them as their senior chief counsel. And here we are getting ready 2 weeks away from the Pan Mass Challenge. So please meet these wonderful human beings, Dave and Jim.
Welcome, Dave and Jim.
Hey, how are you?
It's and thank you so much for what you're doing to help so many people. Dave, can you just sort of explain to our audience what Pan Mass is? Because they may not really know.
The Pan Mass is a 2-day bike event. It's the largest athletic fundraiser in the country and possibly in the world.
Wow.
Since its inception in 1980, it's raised over $1 billion with a B, $1 billion for the Dana-Farber Cancer Institute and the Jimmy Fund. And that's what it's all about. The 2 days runs from Sturbridge in central Mass up and down the hills to Bourne on Saturday night. We sleep in the Mass Maritime dorms, up bright and early the next morning over the Bourne Bridge by 5:30. They close a lane for us. And then we get off our bikes eventually in P-Town at the tip of Cape Cod, 194 miles later.
Wow.
That was an excellent description,
Yeah,
I have to say.
It really
I think
was.
it was very comprehensive and
Soothing to the ear as well.
Yeah. And Jim, how did you get involved in this? And I'll come back to you, Dave.
it's really interesting because everyone seems, we talk about this sometimes when we ride. You know, when we're riding, I swear it's almost like being at the barber. You know what I mean? Everyone's sitting there schmoozing and telling their stories, or we're golfing and we're sitting at the tee waiting for our turn, and everyone has all these random conversations. But one of the recurring themes I have to say is always how did you how did you get into the Pan Mass? And everyone has a unique story, it seems like. Mine was pretty interesting because it started one way and then turned into another. I really just got into it because I thought it was going to be a challenge. I was like, well, this is a physical challenge and I would like to take this on. That changed pretty quickly. Once you bike the Pan Mass, you can't help but be affected by it, and it becomes much more of a mission emotional.
And are you getting emotional?
A little bit.
What's that about?
It's funny. You think about it. I was thinking about this on the way over. It's just that we spend a lot of time really, determined to, raise the money and train and stuff like that. And then I think as we get closer, you start to think about what it's all about, and it's touching.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Saving lives.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. Yeah.
$1 billion worth.
The numbers are staggering if you think about it, because if you think about the people that commit for the 2-day ride, the long ride, you're committed for $6,000, but the Pan Mass is raising $75 million each year.
Wow!
So it's incredible the amount of money that's raised, and I wanted to talk a little bit about how it affects you emotionally. Is that the camaraderie, the crowd participation, the the selfless volunteers and the riders. After a while, you start to think about the riders, and you're just like, we're doing the easy part. It's the donors and the people cheering you on and the people sponsoring you. So it's really touching emotionally.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And you're a group with a concerted mission that you all share. That's powerful. Dave, how did you wind up with Pan Mass?
I was dreading that question.
I'm looking forward to it.
Okay, Mark, we'll skip Dave for a minute.
No.
Come on, Dave.
I've got the most embarrassing origin story.
It's unique.
You meet a ton of people on the Pan Mass, and as Jimmy said, they've got great stories. So many lives have been touched by cancer. So many people have found motivation out of that pain to go and do something positive. I wish I had that story. I don't. I was at a Christmas party with a bunch of expats, and no surprise, there was some beer involved. And we were standing around talking about the highlight of our year. And a good friend of mine, who I've known since college, back in, 1979, in England, he said, well, the highlight of my year was doing the Pan Mass Challenge. He said,
and that's not Miller High Life, I'm assuming, right? Okay, just wanted to be sure.
Horror of horrors.
Sorry.
Yeah.
He's British, I forgot. That's bad.
So, yeah, there was some good IPAs flowing.
So he said that the highlight was doing Pan Mass.
Doing the Pan Mass. And he said I had no idea what it was. He said it's a 200-mile bike ride, et cetera, et cetera. He said it's a really wonderful event. And if it just left it there, I wouldn't be here today talking to you about the Pan Mass Challenge. But he didn't.
Okay.
He added, he said, of course, you guys couldn't do it. And at that point, I sprayed my beer across the room. I've always joked that my final words are probably going to be, hold my beer and watch this.
Right. Good.
Because I'm up for a challenge, especially after a couple of IPAs. So I committed to signing up. Now, you'll probably all be surprised to hear that occasionally drunken promises don't always get fulfilled the next day, but this is one that did. And I didn't have a bike at the time. I had to go out and buy a bike, and I had to buy those bike shorts. I received the best piece of advice that I've got since doing the PMC, and that is you cannot overspend on padded bike shorts. Anyway, if you ask me at mile 100 how much I would spend. It's a lot of dough.
Yeah,
it's
totally.
a lot of dough. So that's how I got into it. But as Jimmy said, you can get into it for all the wrong reasons, as I did. But it transforms as you do it.
Right. I mean, I think it's a powerful reason to be able to meet a challenge and to be doing it without having that personal investment of saying, this is someone I know with cancer, so I'm going to do it for them. This is actually much broader, to be able to just do this, again, for people that you never meet, people you don't know.
Well, you do meet some. And this has been some of the most emotional experiences that I've had on the Pan Mass. The first year I started, there was a little boy, and he was at the Sturbridge start, and he had a sign, and it said, "I'm 7 because of you." And boy, that gets you.
Oh boy,
that really gets you. And in fact, in this year's letter, my fundraising letter, I write about how getting exposure to the people who are fighting cancer really is an inspiration. Around mile 85, there's a water stop. And as I say in my letter, if you're not one of these really skinny Tour de France types, by mile 85, it's in the middle of the afternoon. Every body part that isn't hurting is numb, which is probably worse. And you're feeling I know I'm feeling really sorry for myself. So at that point, the PMC has what they call the pedal partners. These are for about half a mile. These are enormous posters of kids, Jimmy Fund kids, who are fighting cancer through the Dana-Farber. And most of them don't have a hair on their head. Most of them have those dark rings around their eyes that speak to, a long, hard journey with surgery and chemo. And they're all smiling. And that's the thing. They're all smiling. How can you feel sorry for yourself if your butt hurts, for God's sake, faced with that level of heroism? And even worse, when you pull out, this was a couple of years ago, there was a beautiful young woman sitting on the back of a truck in front of her Jimmy Fund poster, her with no hair, as probably a 13, 14-year-old. And she's holding a sign. And it said, "I'm going to college because of you." And I tell you, that's the time your bike gets wet and your shirt gets wet. You just can't help but be really affected by that type of thing.
It's a wonderful testament to who we are as human beings. Right? That we can have this compassion, this desire to help people. Like I said, every friend was once a stranger. And so to help people that we don't know, that we then expand our group. We expand the group to humanity because we are one group. And I think that this really exemplifies it, that we can help people in so many ways by giving something of ourselves. And that's what our sponsors do, is they help so many people in so many ways by giving them themselves. And with that in mind, we'll take a commercial break. We'll be right back with really important stuff here, The Dr. Joe Show, me and Dr. Joe.
Hey, folks, welcome back. So any thoughts? Do you listen to other podcasts? Do you see how they do the sponsors? Is there a way that they're utilizing sponsors that you enjoy or you don't enjoy? I listen to SmartList, and I really enjoy how the co-hosts share the voiceover for the product or service. It's really funny for the most part, but it's unique. It's them really endorsing. Does that work? What do you think?
Thanks, Dave. We're back here with me and Dr. Joe, talking about the Pan Mass Challenge that is 2 short weeks away from tomorrow with Dave Laudermore and Jim O'Leary, and want to remind everybody, really, really easy to support these guys by simply going on your phone, going on your computer, and dialing up pmc.org, right? Pan Mass Challenge, pmc.org. Search your rider, James O'Leary. Search your rider, Dave Laudermore. Marshfield. Yeah, Mark Stiles does it too. Marshfield, and support them because, we're all in this together. We're doing the ride. We're raising the money. Hopefully folks are supporting financially. And we were talking off air. Dave was talking and reminding us what an amazing group of volunteers on this weekend. We've talked about the 48 hours of gratitude, Dr. Joe. Why this is such an amazing part of my year and why I love doing it so much is the thank you for riding. We've heard the stories. Thank you for riding. I'm 16 because of you. I'm going to college because of you. And it's amazing. And then it's the volunteers. Thank you for helping me get through this 192 miles. Thank you for being there, smiling with the peanut butter and banana sandwich that I need right now, and the water and the Gatorade and all of the stuff. So thanks, Dave, for reminding us of our volunteers at pmc.org. You too can help. pmc.org.
Mm-hmm. And off air, we were talking about a couple of things. Dave, you had a story about several times that you'd been riding, and Jim, we were talking about how difficult it can be really just to talk about why you're doing this. So let's go to the story with Dave first, and then Jim, if it's okay, I want to come back to talking about that.
Yeah, what made me bring up the volunteers was a really formative experience I had. Now, everyone runs into the volunteers on PMC weekend. There are thousands upon thousands of volunteers, and they do everything. They make the peanut butter and jelly sandwiches. They cut the fruit. They are unfailingly welcoming and enthusiastic. They can't thank you as a rider enough, and yet these guys are spending a valuable weekend in the summer doing this for you.
Yeah.
It's just amazing. Now, but one trip, one ride, I came off. I crashed my bike on Route 6, believe it or not, Sunday afternoon, heading into P-Town. That Route 6, if you're ever on a bike, it's got potholes the size of elephant traps. And if you're not really paying attention, you can come a cropper, as they say, and I did.
And by this time, you've been riding for
2 days.
2 days.
You're almost there.
So
2 days. You can see the tower.
Yeah.
Okay.
Right there. I was taking a drink of water because by that time of the day, it's the height of the day, the sun is beating down on your back, and I took a drink, was replacing the water bottle in the rack, and hit the mother of all potholes with only one hand on the handlebar. I went flying over the handlebars, barrel rolled, hit the ground with my hip, and my head came down really heavy on the ground, cracked my helmet. It was that hard. The guy who was drafting behind me, now I'm a big guy, and people love to draft on me because I break a lot of the wind. He rode over me and came off and broke his collarbone. Unfortunately, he was taken away in an ambulance. Anyway, cut a long story short, I was able to get back on my bike. I finished the ride, but then knew I needed medical attention. So what did I do? First off, I got myself a beer and a lobster roll because I knew once I hit the medical tent that was the last I was going to see. Then I showed up at the medical tent and told them what had happened and et cetera, and they were most concerned about the head. And so I got to be observed for a good few hours, and I got to sit there and interact with the volunteers, not just the doctors, the folks who were moving the equipment and all that stuff. And our discussions were just as we've had here. What got you into this, or what are you doing? And I was so blown away. And it reminded me of the probably apocryphal story of JFK going to Cape Canaveral when he goes around and he sees a guy with a broom. And he says, what's your job here? And the guy with the broom looks him right in the eye and says, putting a man on the moon. These guys are exactly the same.
Nice.
They may physically be spending their weekend pushing a porta potty around a hot parking lot, but you ask them what they're doing that weekend, and they're going to tell you they're curing cancer.
Yeah.
And that is so impressive.
Yeah.
Again, having a shared goal. Wouldn't it be nice if, humanity could do that? Mark's heard me say that my last name's Strand. I get Shrandiose, but I really believe that we can do this because we all want the same thing. We want to feel valued by someone else, and what you guys are doing is reminding people of their value by saying, I'm going to give of myself to help you live another minute, another hour, hopefully years. And it's powerful what you're doing. You're keeping people alive, helping people. And Jim, this gets to, what you were talking about, and how when you first started talking, you got a little teary. So
sure.
Can we come back to that?
Yeah, I think it's always a little bit tough to break the ice talking about the PMS because it's such an emotional weekend, in my opinion. I mean, if you think about it, and as Dave was just saying, is like this is one huge group effort. Like everyone's as Bill Belichick would say, is doing their job. You know what I mean? Everyone's has a mission in every. I mean, if you think about it, all these missions are in everyone's jobs equally important. Supporting the riders, logistics, making sure that people know where to go, how to get lodging. Then you have people I'm just amazed at the generosity of some of the people who sponsor you. It just goes to show you that a lot of people have been touched by cancer, and it's important to them. And one of the things I would say is I think I said this last year too. There's a selfish aspect to it too, because the feeling you get from doing it is just incredible. You are doing this to help people, but you're also getting something great in return. It's such a rewarding situation.
Right, but that's evolution as well. Our brains would not have evolved to experience that if there wasn't some reason for it. There's something really group productive where you get that reward. That's not a coincidence. It's not a coincidence. You speak about this a lot, Mark, that gratitude, right? And that feeling of people appreciating you for
it's
what
that,
you do.
It's exactly what Jim is saying. You almost feel selfish by giving because it feels so good, and it's
but it's not
something people don't talk about very much. It's the oxytocin.
It's the oxytocin.
You're seeking that, and you're not seeking it necessarily, yet it is such an important component to that give, right? And it is that evolution that you're talking about.
Yes,
because if you didn't feel that way, maybe some people wouldn't give.
No.
Right? Why would they give?
That's right. And again, from an evolutionary point of view, that's the part of what I'm trying to say is that we're one group called humanity.
Yeah.
Because within a group, you're going to experience that. You do something for someone in your group, you get that reward, that sense of being valued, that oxytocin.
You get to stay.
You get to stay in the group. But sadly, some groups feel that there's another group that doesn't quite meet their standard. And then we have the conflicts that we have today.
So there's another group aspect to it too, because if you think about it, is that I didn't really know any. I mean, we do have a larger team, and I'm in of course, the people, everyone on the team's great people, but for the most part, there's a smaller group that trains that are local. With the exception of one person who's John Camessa that I went to high school with. I didn't know any of these guys. And, there's a great bond between the group as a result. And I think it's some of these guys, of course, have known each other from, prior experiences, you know what I mean? Their kids playing or being in coaching together or something like that. But I always think that the group has almost like a personality of its own. And, I was saying that there's always someone who's going through something every year, and everyone's supporting them. It's pretty cool.
Yeah.
So, it's what weekend? When is Pan Mass? Actually,
It's always the first weekend in
the
August.
first weekend in August. And people can actually observe and watch you guys and cheer as well, right?
Yeah. Or they can go online at pmc.org, search a rider, James O'Leary, and Dave Laudermore. But this brings up a good point, Dr. J. We were talking about upcoming episodes and guests coming. And, I typically take our family vacation the Monday after Pan Mass. And there's a couple of reasons for it. It's, it's exhausting, right? And it's also the adrenaline crash, if you will. And it's time to rest the body, and continue that good feeling, right? So I remember the first time I completed the Pan Mass Challenge, I went back to work Monday morning. Here I am, phone rang, and here we go. And humanity underwhelmed me. And I decided at that time I'm not going to go right back to
work, to
normalcy, right? So I chose that this is going to be our time to continue riding this gratitude wave and be with family and love and oxytocin, and do the family vacation that next coming week. And then you kind of jog back into reality, and you hope that what you've learned that weekend you can continue to share and inspire others, and then deal with realities as they come. However, not right away,
right?
Because that 48 hours, that Friday into Sunday, is special. It is very, very special, unique and special.
I've always found it. And you're right, Dr. Joe. You wish the world could be like this.
Yeah.
A lot more of the world could be like this. It's one of those. I find it an unambiguous good. And there's so few of those. Everyone likes to tear down whatever program it is, but the Pan Mass, it's just an unambiguous good. You can feel really good about committing to it, either as a rider or as a sponsor, because that's you making a commitment. As a rider, it gives you such a sense of satisfaction, because what you have to do is you make a plan. You make a couple of plans. Number one, how am I going to get this body, this 63-year-old, rather porky body, on a bike over 192 miles? So that takes planning. You have to put the hours in on the bike. How am I going to raise the money? $6,000 is a lot of donations. Some people give you $20, and I'm so grateful. Some people give you a lot more than that, but the average donation is pretty small. Maybe $50. So you need to talk to a lot of people to make that happen. And by the end of that weekend, typically you've got there, you haven't crashed, you didn't have to walk your bike up any hills, and that's my baseline, and you've made the money. And so your plans have come to fruition, and you can feel really proud of that.
And that's prefrontal cortex, is being able to plan ahead. And that's exactly what I'm about to do now by having our sponsors talk about their plan. So with that in mind, we'll take our final commercial break and be right back with me and Mark Stiles.
Oh.
Hey, welcome back. And again, we're super grateful for you listening to the Dr. Joe Show. If you have anyone that you think might be a good sponsor, shoot us an email at drjoepodcast@gmail.com. DRJOE podcast@gmail.com. Give us your thoughts about the show, too. We're wondering, are we talking to the trees, or are people really gaining value in this? Please let us know. Thank you again, and enjoy the rest of the show.
And we're back. Me and Dr. Joe in studio talking about Pan Mass. PMC.org. Reminder, PMC.org is what we're doing here. Search a rider, James O'Leary, Dave Laudermore in Marshfield. Help them out. Support them.
Yeah, please do, folks, because your donation will help, again, people that you never meet. It's such an important cause cancer's not going away. It is a very interesting condition in and of itself that adapts and adapts and adapts to everything that we're doing. But we're saving a lot more lives. Right?
There's one thing I should probably mention now. When you asked me initially about the PANMAS, there's one really important statistic that everyone should know if you're thinking about donating. We understand completely you've got a lot of choice. There's a lot of great causes that you could choose to support. One of the things that I find the hardest is asking people for money, even for a cause as great as the PMC. But it's made easier by the fact that the PMC guarantees that every cent that riders that are donated to the riders goes 100% to the cause.
Yeah.
So your donation is making a real difference in the lives of your friends, family, your colleagues, your neighbours, everyone that's been touched by this awful disease. You're 100% making a difference, and there's not many organisations that can make that claim.
Yeah, that's a very good point. It's good. So every dollar is really a dollar.
Yes.
Yeah. What do you want to do, Mark? Oh, Mark's giving me the 2 question sign. All right, I think we'll do it. So,
there you
as
go,
you guys
listener,
know,
behind the scenes right
right.
there, a little behind the scenes, listener.
The IM, remember, there are 4 domains. We're always responding the best we can, but influenced by our home domain, our social domain, the biological domain, and the IC, how I see myself, how I think other people see me. And we're actually talking about all 4 today. But we're really also talking about that biological domain and how you are seen by other people. Because the domains interact, a small change can have a big effect. You don't interchange everything. So given what we're talking about tonight, Jim, let me start with you. What small change can you recommend to our listeners?
One thing I think people should probably think about is that you might think that you understand why someone's behaving a certain way, and you're probably wrong. You know what I mean? They have other things that are going on in their life, and other motivations, and if you it could be in like a situation where you're stressed or something like that, you might assume the worst, and it could be completely unrelated. And I think people need to kind of give people a little grace, especially if they're behaving in a way they don't that you don't like, because they could be dealing with something you're not aware of, and it's more than likely probably a reflection on something how they're feeling themselves. So it's one thing to think about is people should try to give people the benefit of the doubt sometimes, and try to take a step back on that.
That's great, and that's really what the IM is about, is saying, rather than judging this person about why they're doing what they're doing, let's look again at why they're doing what they're doing based on the influence of the domains. And you think about the words look again and reverse them. Again, look. Again, to repeat something, look like a spectator. Let's respect why people do what they do. So I think it's very important, small change. Our brains will activate in response, but then we can step back and look again what's going on with this person. Great advice for folks. Dave, what about you? What small change can you recommend to our listeners based on our topic for tonight?
I would say look for an opportunity to get yourself out of your comfort zone. We all in our lives, we all find what's comfortable, and it's tempting just to stick with that. In my experience, though, some of the greatest experiences come from putting yourself in a situation that you're not comfortable. It could be talking with someone about something difficult. It could be doing a PANMAS challenge, doing something where you have to plan and carry out and execute that plan. But do something that gets you out of your comfort zone and makes you think. I think you'll find yourself much more aware of your surroundings and what's going on, and you'll see clearly, much more clearly.
Yeah. And there is a difference between things that are familiar and comfortable. Because we have a lot of things that are very familiar, but that doesn't always make them comfortable. So I agree. I think if you can use that exploratory brain that we have, that brain that searches out and seeks interesting things, do it. It's a great small change. And let me stick with you, Dave. The second truth of the I am, everyone's got one. Everyone is interested through their IC domain what you think or feel about them, which has an effect on their biological domain, because you know it feels different when you feel respected or disrespected. You're part of someone's home and social domain. So, Dave Laudermore, what kind of influence do you want to be? Because the second truth of the I am, you control no one, you influence everyone, you get to choose the kind of influence you want to be. What kind of influence?
Boy, that is such a tough question. You gave me a little bit of advance notice that one was coming my way, and I've been racking my brains as I've been sitting here. I find that a terribly difficult question because I vacillate. I vacillate between the humility that who am I to try and influence someone else? They've got their own lives, they've got their own issues, they're going to find their own way. They don't need to look to David Laudermore to point them in a new direction. And then the flip side of that is incredibly grandiose. My son Charlie goes to BC High, and the headmaster there wrote something in the enrollment materials I just laughed at. And it's, I want these students to be a better person after every class. And I laughed at it. I thought that was hilarious. Because, I remember going to school. If I could get out of a class compos mentis, without falling asleep, I'd consider that a win. He wants them to be better human beings after every class. So there is part of me that recognizes that, hey, you're going to go big, you might as well go big. If you don't want to influence someone, big time, why bother? So I'd love to be, a force for good in the world. In my work, I've had occasion to tell the people who worked for me. I was head of environmental for a while at National Grid. A lot of environmental issues, and I had all the engineers reporting to me, and I told them to go out and be a force for good in the world. And that's something, we can all do.
And that's what you guys are all doing with Pan Mass. Jim, let me ask you the same question. You control no one? What kind of influence you want to be?
It's definitely, it's a hard one. I think that if you definitely want to be a good example for people, to try to, lead by example, whether it be work or your friend group or your family or whatnot. One of the things I think about is that if we think about the Pan Mass and everything we're trying to achieve, it's almost like you're trying to kind of pay it forward. Put some good vibes out into the world. You know what I mean? Or do some good, and hopefully it's one of those things that can multiply and grow.
Yeah, quite an influence. How do they donate?
PMC.org. PMC.org. Search your writer, James O'Leary, Dave Laudermore, Marshfield.
And Mark Stiles. Thanks, folks. Thank you for everything you're doing and for all the lives that you're touching. Appreciate it.
Have a great week, everybody.
Yeah. And thanks in there.
Thanks, Dave. Thanks, Tom.
Stretch the kindness, brush with madness. Is it sadness or just a show? Van Gogh.